Well, welcome everyone. Thanks for stopping by on a Friday. Happy Friday to everyone. My name is Brian Bowman. I'm a solutions architect here in North America as part of the North America Solution Architecture team. And we actually, me and my counterparts, we kind of get free reign to talk about kind of whatever we want on these Megaport Live tech drop-ins. And so this week, I am going to be talking about optimizing network performance on Megaport. And this kind of came out of a conversation I had earlier in the week with a large retail organization. They had a specific kind of use case or problem they were trying to solve. And so just by kind of flipping through the Megaport portal and showing them some live demonstrations, I was able to kind of quickly go through and show them how they can use Megaport to solve some of these issues. And so I'm going to kind of replicate that conversation and kind of show you what we can do. So let's get started. All right. So this particular company, they had this kind of setup here where they had a SD-WAN network. And, I'm just showing a few sites on the screen here, but they have quite a few locations in Europe and a primary data center that they were connecting back to in North America. And this particular organization. This was in New York, and they're using SD-WAN over public internet. And the particular issue they were having was associated with the site in the Netherlands. And they were seeing some high latency, kind of in the neighborhood of about 140 milliseconds on a typical day-to-day basis. And so they were wondering, what could be done using Megaport to kind of solve this problem. And so what we're going to kind of demo today is this setup. So essentially this setup, in this case, I put a Fortinet in place, but this really could be any device that Megaport supports. It could be a Cisco router, it could be Palo Alto firewall, it could be Palo SD-WAN, Silver Peak SD-WAN, something like that, right? So some sort of virtualized device or NFV device sitting on top of Megaport, and then using Megaport's private backbone to connect back to that data center in the US. And so what we're trying to accomplish here is basically reduce the latency and improve the performance of their branch locations in Europe. And so that's the goal. And so let me exit out of the presentation here, and we'll look at how this is set up live. All right, so I'm over in the Megaport portal now. You can see this is a demo account, of course. We got all kinds of services in here, but I don't have anything set up to Europe today. And I'm going to go over to services, and we'll just show you kind of what I went through with this customer is creating a Megaport virtual edge. And so we'll put in Amsterdam. And you'll see we have a few options here in Amsterdam to drop that virtual edge. I'm going to just pick the top one here. And in my list, I'll see a Fortinet, but you'll see there's other options depending on what you're using in your infrastructure. And we'll just say demo MVE. And we'll size this device, and I'll have to drop a license in here. And put an SSH key. Okay, looks good. And add this MVE and then create Megaport Internet on top of it. I'll do a local internet circuit. One thing you'll notice, and I'll kind of point this out a little bit later, but when you create this Megaport Internet circuit, it's not only going to say, this is my best option, which is less than 1 millisecond away. So this is the internet pop. But I could build other internet circuits to this device. So this is one of the things I was pointing out to this customer. So yes, I'm building this in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam. But I could also build an internet circuit from Frankfurt off of here if I wanted to. So I could have one circuit from Amsterdam and one from Frankfurt. And I know that my latency between Amsterdam and Frankfurt is 6 milliseconds. So that's a predictable value, right? So if I had a branch location in Frankfurt, I can bring that private network all the way to the internet pop there. All right, so we'll just put it here. and hit next and just get a bandwidth value on that. And we'll add that guy. All right, you can see it off of my cart here off to the left. I'm going to go ahead and show you just kind of how quick this is to order, but I actually pre-staged this because I don't want to go through the FortiGate setup. Probably take 5 or 10 minutes, so we'll save you a little bit of time here. But this is pretty much as easy as it is to order. So this will spin up in about 5 minutes. This one I just created, but I'm going to pull up the one I've pre-staged. And you can see here, it's still in Amsterdam. And then the internet circuit local there in Amsterdam. And so this, if I go back to my drawing here, I basically set up this device here with an internet connection connected to it. And that's pretty much it so far. The next thing I'm going to do is just replicate kind of what the customer had, which is a data center in New York. And so I'm going to put just a virtual router in a New York data center just to show you what kind of network performance would look like. So I'm going to pick this location in New York. This is Digital Realty at JFK 10. And we just need a small router just to run some tests to. So this will just be a virtual NFV router that I set up in that data center. Don't really need a set up a BGP peer, but could do that if I wanted to, but just for test purposes, not really needed. All right, so I'm going to order that router. All right, so now I've pretty much set up the 2 endpoints, right? So I've got a FortiGate sitting in a Megaport data center in Amsterdam, and I'm spinning up currently the cloud router, virtual router sitting in a data center in New York. The only thing I really have left to kind of test the network performance is setting up that private connection between these 2 devices. So back to my drawing, it's just basically this red line here. One thing you'll notice, so when I set this up, so I'm going to build this connection off the FortiGate, and I'm going to build a private VXC. You'll notice that I get a bunch of options here, depending on my endpoints I have available. I'll just kind of reduce this down to this router that I built in New York. And right away, you'll see the latency, right? So 75 milliseconds. So I'm going to be running Amsterdam to New York. According to the tool here, I get 75 milliseconds. So we'll actually be able to test this out once this spins up. And we'll just say Atlantic private network. And we'll just give it 100 megs. And you'll see here, I get the option of dropping it on a particular interface. I'll put it on interface 2. And I'm going to put this on a VLAN tag, 100. Okay, looks good. This is going to give me the option to configure that router. So think of that router in New York. So the BN router in this case is in New York. And so I'm just going to configure an interface just so I can run some ping tests to it. And 30. And that's it. I'm not going to turn up the BGP peer. We'll add that device and we'll go ahead and order the private connection. All right. So let me log into my FortiGate and just so I can show you what's going on in there. All right, so let me just kind of walk you through what's going on in the FortiGate. So I have set up FortiGate in advance. I've set up, a couple of interfaces. You can see the top port there is the internet interface. So this is my public interface. One thing I did with this particular customer is I set this up in the demo, and then I had them ping this edge. So they had a location in Amsterdam that they're having an issue with. So they pinged it to see what the local latency would be. So this IP is, local to Amsterdam. That's where I created my internet circuit. And then I have a second port on there, and this is where I'd build my private connections in this case. And you could see this sub interface, this VLAN here, I've built out, and I've hopefully put it on VLAN 100. Yep, so VLAN 100 here, and then my IP range that I'm setting up. Okay, so that looks good. And what I'll do, we'll just do a command line here, and we'll see if our circuit is up and running. So there we go. So the local, I think the local is 100. Yeah, that's the local IP. And then the far end should be .2. And it doesn't look like it's up yet. Let's go back here to the portal and refresh this. Okay, so yeah, so we just got to wait a minute for this connection to come up. You'll see the router spun up already. It's in green status. And now we're just waiting for that connection to come up. And then we'll be able to ping that to see what the network performance, and hopefully it's around 75 milliseconds. That's kind of what we would expect. While we're waiting for that connection to come up, one other thing that I was talking to this customer about, if they ever went to like a VDI environment, let's say on Azure or on a different cloud provider, they also could use this same service. So for example, I have this Megaport virtual edge already spun up, and originally I created a private connection back to that data center. But I could also, not only create an internet connection, but I can create a cloud connection, right? So in here, I'll just put AWS in as an example. But if I had a region built out in AWS Virginia region, what I might want to do is build a connection, type in, let's say, Virginia, and you'll see I'm going to get some options here. Not only do I get options for Virginia, it's going to organize them by latency. So it's going to say, all right, your best option to connect to AWS is to New York, but I could also go, closer to the actual compute resources, and I can connect in Reston. I can connect in Ashburn, and you can see the network performance is going to be 80 milliseconds, right? So now my users in the Netherlands can connect to my region, in this case, the Virginia region for AWS, in about 80 milliseconds. So pretty cool tool that's built in here. All right, let's go back and refresh and see if our connection's up. All right, looks like it is. Let me just filter this down. All right, cool. So it's green. So let me just see if I did my configuration right here. And I got all packet loss. That's what happens when you do a live demo. I probably messed up my IP address. So hold on one second. Let me go back and just check these out. try this again. All right, cool. All right, so yeah, you can see here we got now a live connection. And so going from that Amsterdam MVE to my data center in New York, 74.9 milliseconds. So it looks like we are rounding off in the portal a little bit, but pretty much exactly what we would expect from the actual performance of the network there. So that's it, guys. So just a quick overview again. We are just trying to optimize the customer's network to reduce, improve performance, probably 70–80% increase in performance as far as latency is concerned by moving it over their cross-Atlantic crossing to a private network. And then obviously you get the benefit of having a private network, right? The consistency of the performance from day to day. So those users aren't affected by anything going on the internet. But that's it for today. Let me just check real quick to see if there's any questions, and then we'll just wrap it up. Okay, I see nothing in the queue. All right, so that's it for today. You guys have a great Friday and a great weekend. Talk to you next time.